Welcome to a Lovely Yarn podcast. I'm trying a little table in front of me this time so that I don't have all my goodies on the floor next to me. So my name is Amber. My family and I live on a hobby farm in western Pennsylvania. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Pennsylvania, it's a very hilly state. We've got lots of hills, lots of forest, lots of oak trees, maple, pine. I'm thinking about what's around our home. Birch trees, which are my favorite, and we actually planted those in our yard. We have several of them. And sassafras, tulip trees, lots of things. We live in a rural area, and we do have a small hobby farm, as I said. We have goats. We have 2 Nubian goats and a little pygmy goat. We have rabbits, 1 Angora, 1 Holland Lop. We have a couple dogs. We have many chickens and 4 cats. And I'm just kind of giving a little introduction. I noticed that I had a few more subscribers, which just filled my heart with joy. But I'm trying to think what else I want to tell you about. Oh, we are, I guess you could call us homesteaders, although I feel that word is really overused. We do raise animals and we garden. I'm a big gardener. I love to grow herbs and vegetables, and we have berry bushes, both domestic and wild ones that we forage. And I also really love flowers, and usually I've just put flowers in my landscaping, but this year I'm actually going to mix them in more with my vegetables and herbs, so I'm excited to start that once the weather warms up. But for now, it's still snowing. We have a dust of snow, probably a half an inch actually, more than a dusting, and the snowflakes are very lazily falling out of the sky today. It's still pretty cold. So we're definitely still feeling winter here in Pennsylvania, which part of me is really just ready for spring. I'm really ready to get my hands in the dirt. I'm ready to plant and to play in the dirt, and I just love the smell of the dirt. I don't even wear gloves, which that's why I don't even care about my nails. I would love to have nice nails, but they're not nice at all. I use my hands too much, and I don't protect them with gloves when I garden because I actually like the feel of the dirt. So my nails are always really cruddy looking in the warmer months because typically they're stained with dirt and grass, green stuff. But I've really been trying to remind myself just to kind of take in this winter season. Winter is probably my least favorite season. I do love the extra time that it affords as far as knitting because I'm not outside as much. However, I do also get cabin fever. I'm not crazy about the lack of sun. It's typically pretty dreary in Pennsylvania in the winter, although we've had some pretty nice days this winter. We've had more sun than usual, so that's really been nice. But anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, other than I am looking forward to spring, but I also have so many knitting projects that I would like to do that I'm just kind of taking advantage of these cold, snowy days and doing that as much as I can. Although my schedule's been super, super busy lately for lots of different reasons. You know, I homeschool as well, but then also just some personal reasons as well. I've really been busy, so I just grab moments, and I always carry my knitting with me. It's always with me because you never know when you're going to get stuck somewhere and you have some extra time. So let's get started. I am going to talk about some different things today. I have a couple projects that I want to show you. 2 of them are test knits, so I'm not sure that I might have to kind of keep those on the down low. But both of those designers have been posting photos on Instagram, so I'm pretty sure that I'm okay to go ahead and talk about those a little bit. And then I have just one personal project that I'm working on. But then I also have some yarn that's really inspiring me that I wanted to talk about. As well as I have my alpaca fiber here. This is just such a small amount of what I actually really have. So I wanted to talk a little bit about spinning and just the process of obtaining alpaca fiber, because we used to have alpacas, so I have lots of fiber from our animals. So I think that is what the plans are for today. I'm so thankful that you decided to join me. If you ever have any comments, just leave them below. I have a Ravelry group that I set up when I first started this podcast, but I'm really horrible with Ravelry. I put some projects on there, but they're not near the amount of projects that I've actually done. And I just find it it's just an extra thing for me to have to keep up to date with, and I'm not doing very well with that. Also, I'm just so busy right now, and I feel like I have to really just guard my time. So Ravelry is not my favorite medium to use right now. I really love Instagram. I like YouTube. So if you have questions, sending me one on either of those places would be good. And I do always love comments as well. Those always make me feel good too. So let's get started. Had to lose my sweater there. It was getting kind of warm. Where I'm sitting, this is our bedroom, and we have a little seating area here where Brad and I will sit in the morning, have our coffee together. But there is a heat vent right here next to me, and the heat is on, so it's a little bit warm. I wanted to talk about my personal project that I'm working on right now. I've put pictures of this on Instagram. It's been a really fun knit. It's been a really fun knit. It's been a really fun knit. I haven't worked on it for a couple weeks though, because I've been diligently working on my test knits. But this is the Land of Sweets cowl by Helen Stewart, and let me just kind of show you what I got here so far. I think her patterns are so wonderful. She actually marks as you go through each. So she has written instructions, and then she has charted instructions for the lace pattern parts. And as you work down through the written instructions, she actually will write every now and then what percentage you've completed of the cowl. So I think I'm like 70-some% complete on this. So I don't have a whole lot left. And it's been really fun, and it's been a really quick knit because it's constantly changing, whether it's the pattern or the yarn. And I've just been using mini skeins that I have. A lot of these are 6 and 7 fiber. I have some of Regina's yarn from Herb's Black Regina. Regina, I don't know. I am really horrible with foreign languages and accents. What else do I have in here? I have some stuff that, this is Yarn at Home Mom. This is the Anna Green Gables colorway. And I honestly, there's a lot in here that Olivia from This Handmade Life sent me. But anyway, it's just been really, really fun adding those in. And so I am almost completed with this. And I think this will be great for spring because it's made with fingering weight yarn. And there are some lace panels in it. So it's going to be really good for cool spring mornings and nights. And so once I finish these test knits up that I'm about to show you, I'm going to get back to this, get it finished and blocked up so that I can actually wear this beautiful pattern this spring. So yes, that is what's going on with that. It's been very enjoyable. I also have, I love when knitters and podcasters share what they're drinking. I don't know why. Maybe because I like hot beverages, so I like to hear what they're drinking. But I made myself some chamomile tea. This tea is beautiful. So it's loose leaf tea, and it has all the little chamomile flowers in it, which are just really pretty. I grow chamomile in the summer, so it's just really nice. I don't know, it looks really pretty in a tea. And I have it on my little felted coaster that I made. I made several of these a few years back. I actually got this fiber from a woman who was a spinner, and we happened to be up north hiking, and they happened to be having some sort of Revolutionary War reenactment there, and so they had some artisans as well, just kind of set up in booths selling their wares. And she had some really, really rustic hand spun yarn. This was back before I spun yarn myself. I think she probably had fiber there as well, but I did not know how to spin at that time. I didn't have a spinning wheel or a spindle or anything, so I just bought some of her yarn. It was extremely rustic, very scratchy. So what I ended up doing is just making a bunch of little coasters and felting them, and I bought this blue color as well as a really pretty bright springy yellow color, and just swirled some white in with it. But anyway, I always really like this. It reminds me of that little trip north that we had as a family, we had together as a family. So my next project that I want to show you is one that I'm getting close to being finished. It is a test knit for Larky of Fiber Tales podcast. She's also Fiber Tales on Instagram. And this, oh goodness, I may mispronounce this. And I meant to look up Skovmaker. Larky, I'm sorry, I'm probably mispronouncing your name and your pattern. But I'm just going to give a little peek. It's a yoked sweater. It's worked from the top down. It has a very interesting yoke. Simple, easy to do. However, yet there's still, I think that if you would do this, that there's probably some things maybe that you'll do that you've never done before, but they're not anything complicated. So let me just stick it up. So there's the yoke. I'm working on the first sleeve, and I have the other sleeve to do yet, but the whole body's done. So this is due Sunday. That's my deadline. As you can tell, I'm not going to have time to get stuck on the sleeves. I'm going to power through those and finish this up, and honestly, I am so excited to wear this. When I knitted it up, the body, I had to go down a needle size to get gauge. And then once I had the body done, I tried it on and it fits me, but it fits pretty tight. Not that it's not skin tight, but it's a little bit tighter than what I would prefer. So I am hoping, no, I know that when I block this, it's going to block out. This is Quince & Co. yarn. It's their, let me dig through here. It is their Finch base. Okay, so this is 100% American wool. It's extremely springy. It has really great memory. It's been a pleasure to work with. And so I know when I block this that I'll be able to block it out and make the body a bit looser so that it will fit me more comfortably. It looks nice on, it's just that I would prefer for it to be a little looser. And I'm planning on making this pattern again because I have really enjoyed it and I love the look of it, and I'd like to make it in a colored yarn next time. So I may even either go up a needle size and actually use the needle that the pattern called for, or I may make a medium and just use the needles I have. So I'm doing it in the Caspian colorway, which is an undyed yarn. I really like Quince & Co. I use their yarn a lot. I like that it's sourced in the United States. I also I like the company and what it stands for. it's actually pretty interesting. I listened to a podcast, an audio cast, I guess it's called. Making. The woman who does it, her name is Ashley, I think. She had Jared Flood on. She was interviewing him. And he, of course, is the founder of Brooklyn Tweed. But he was talking about how him and this other woman, and I can't think of her name, but anyway, she founded Quince & Co. And he was kind of talking about that story. And I had read into Quince & Co. before as well. I know they're based out of Maine. And I've really been pleased with this yarn. It's been a pleasure to work with. Like I said, it's not the first time I've worked with Quince & Co. But yeah, so here is my test knit. I will finish this. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I have to take my son to church tonight. He's playing. He plays on a couple of our worship teams at our church, and he's playing tonight, and he has to be there an hour and a half early, so I will have some time to sit down and knit. And when I finish up this podcast, I'm going to knit also, so I won't have a problem finishing that. I work well with deadlines, actually. Okay, and the next test knit that I'm doing is for Nora. Her name is Fox and Folk on Instagram. And I want to see the willow lace. I could not remember what she named this pattern. So she showed this pattern on her Instagram feed, looking for test knitters, and I saw it, and I thought I need to test knit that. Even though I had the sweater test knit going on, I knew I'd be able to get it done because it's a cowl, so it's not as time consuming as a sweater. This is really beautiful, and I don't have much of it. I only have the first repeat. So let me just show you. And this is actually how it's going to, be on your neck. I'm using Quince & Co. for this as well. This is the owl base, which is 50% American wool and 50% alpaca. And it's very scrumptiously soft and stretchy. So it's making for a lovely time knitting. Let me show you. So when I agreed to test knit this and found out what the yarn requirements were, I was actually pretty excited because it gave me a good reason to buy more yarn. I honestly did not have any. It calls for worsted weight, and I did not have any in my stash that would have worked for this. I don't have a huge stash, and I certainly don't have much worsted weight. Most of my stash that I have is fingering weight, and I have some DK weight. But yeah, so I was very excited to be able to check out some yarn. And I looked on various websites, and I just went back to Quince & Co. because I knew I didn't have a lot of time. This test knit deadline is like April 2nd. So I didn't want to play around and wait around, and I knew that Quince & Co. shipped rather quickly. So I ordered 2 different colors, both on the owl base. This is cilantro. So I ordered this, which I love this green. I don't even wear green. I love green though, but I don't wear it. I don't think I have one piece of green clothing in my wardrobe. I feel like I need to change that. I'm very drawn to blues, like navies, and pinks, but ballet pink, light shades of pink. Corally colors, not anything like bright pink. I guess my color palette is very navy, off-white, coral, pink. Yeah, so, but this was gorgeous. So I bought 2 skeins of this, and then I bought 2 skeins of the Elf colorway, which is undyed, which is what I ended up working with. I did a poll on Instagram asking, should I go with the green? Should I go with the undyed? And most of the people there said go with the green. I think there were only 5 or 6 people that said no, go with the undyed yarn. But I was just like, oh, I want to do the green, but I really felt like the pattern needed this color. So I did this. And I'll use the green for something else. I'll figure something out for that. Yes, I went with the Elf colorway. It's really pretty. It's a nice, very neutral. So I'm really excited about this, and it's a very easy pattern. And it's got the beautiful I-cord edging. So yes, I'm really enjoying making this, and this yarn is just fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another sip of tea, and I want to transition into some of the yarns that I'm currently using as inspiration. And I have a new book I want to share with you that I am reading and really enjoying. And then I want to talk a little bit about my spinning. So I think that's going to be the plan for the rest. Okay, so before me, these are some of my inspirational yarns right now. I think you can probably see a theme here. Let me kind of gather them up. Shades of pink, shades of blue, some gray. The funny thing is I've been seeing a lot of indie dyers posting very springy colorways, new colorways in their shops. And I'm like, yeah, I like that. I want to get it. But then I also know that it's beautiful, but it's just not, it's not me. So I don't want to order something that I'm not going to feel inspired to use. Not because it's not beautiful, but just because, you know, it's maybe not my color palette or something, a color that makes me feel happy. So let's talk about what I have here in front of me. All right, this first skein. I bought this first skein of yarn 6 years ago. That's a long time ago. My goodness. I know this company is still in business though, because just either the end of 2017 or just in January of this year, I had looked them up on the internet because I bought this yarn and a pattern to go with it, and I wanted to access the pattern. This is by Carradine Farm, Chincoteague Island in Virginia. We vacationed there as a family for like 3 years in a row, and I think it was the second year that we went there that I found this little yarn shop, and it's literally like tucked way off the beaten path. Driving up to it, there was, I think it was just a home, and the couple had converted their garage into their yarn shop, if I remember correctly, but it's, like I said, it's been 6 years since I bought this. So Chincoteague is known for, it's off the Chesapeake Bay, or it's part of the Chesapeake Bay. It's a cute little beach town, and the actual beach is a wildlife preserve. So it's not your typical beach getaway. Like growing up, I'd go to North Carolina beaches, which, you know, it was basically the beach and then rows and rows of houses. So Chincoteague is not like that. It's actually a beach town, and then you have to drive over a bridge to get to the actual beach. And as I said, it's a wildlife preserve, so it's very protected, and they have the wild horses there. It was quite an experience because I had read the Misty of Chincoteague books with my children when they were younger, and so those books were actually written at a B&B right in town, and they have the little plaque outside of that B&B, and so it was really cool to... Marguerite Henry is the author of those books, and she's authored many more books, and I think most of them are about horses, but they're nonfiction, or I'm sorry, they're fiction. So anyway, so we always enjoyed our stay in Chincoteague. We did that vacation when our kids were younger, because honestly, a beach vacation is just very easy when you have young kids, because you go to the beach, you play in the sand, you play in the water, and then you go home and clean up, and then, do whatever else. We usually walk into town. It's a cute little town. If you've never been there, it's worth a trip. So anyway, Carradine Farms has a whole, or at least, no, they still have, because I saw it when I was on their website. So they have a whole line of Chincoteague colors. And I bought 2 skeins when I was there. And shoot, I want to grab what I made with the other skeins. So hold on 1 minute. Okay, so when I went to Chincoteague, Carradine Farm, I bought a skein of fingering weight merino, which this was the very first pair of socks that I ever knitted, and it is 100% merino. Silly me. So that does explain why I have a huge hole in the bottom, in the heel of one of them. And I'm actually surprised that these have held up as long as they have, now that I think about it, because I made these 5 years ago. 5? I don't even remember. Anyway, after I made them and started to learn more about, the smart yarn choices for socks, I realized that 100% merino probably wasn't the best idea for a pair of socks. And so then I just started wearing these around the house, basically at night. After I'd get on my pajamas, I'd put them on and wear them to bed to keep my feet warm, which they did really great at doing that. So this was one of their water colorways. I don't remember the name. But then I also bought this skein. This is DK. This one is 100% merino as well, and it is the Dusk on Chincoteague colorway. And when I bought this, she was also selling a pattern that she had, either she designed it or she had someone design it specifically for this yarn and this colorway. And so I have that pattern, and at the time when I bought it, I was a rather new knitter, so I felt overwhelmed by that pattern at that time, but I could totally do it now, and I'm going to. It's a lace pattern, but it must be more like it's a shawl pattern, and I feel like it was rather a good looking size, but I'm looking at this and there's 250 yards in this skein, and the pattern only called for 1 skein, so it must not be a real big shawl. I bought the pattern, I filed it. I have a filing system that I file all my knitting patterns, and I haven't really looked at it recently. Okay, so another yarn inspired by a vacation spot. This is a Fiber Company yarn, and it's their Acadia base. So the Acadia base is 60% merino wool, 20% baby alpaca, and 20% silk. And there is 145 yards in this little, looks like a little baby skein. This colorway is granite. It's beautiful. It's a shade of blue, but it's got little flecks in it. Almost looks tweedy in some places. So the reason I even was drawn to this yarn, and this is going to sound so lame, but it's the Acadia base. And we, as a family, we vacation in Acadia every year. So Acadia is in Maine. It's about 3 hours north of Portland, and it's right on the coast. So Acadia, it's a national park, and we actually always run a little cottage right near town. So Bar Harbor is the town that we stay. We're pretty much in Bar Harbor, just slightly outside of like the town limits, and it's just it's such a beautiful, beautiful spot to vacation. We do go in the beginning of September, end of August, beginning of September. Typically, we try to go right before Labor Day. That has proven to be the best time to go as far as crowds. And also, it is a harbor town, so they do bring in cruise ships. And I was speaking to the yarn shop owner up there, and she said for some reason that week before Labor Day, it's like a break week. They do have a couple cruise ships that come in, but it's nothing like normal. And also, it's a little less populated because schools are back in session and such at the end of August, beginning of September. So last year we were not able to get our cottage because we waited too long to rent it. So we weren't able to get it the week that we normally go. So we were there the week of Labor Day, and it was weird because it was only a week later, but the weather felt much cooler. The wild blueberries were pretty much dried up, and honestly, that's one of my favorite parts. When we hike the mountains, there are wild blueberry bushes everywhere, and I love to stop and eat them. I do it a lot. But just that week's time, they were mostly just dried up on the bush, not juicy, not sweet, nothing really worth stopping for to eat. But also, oh my goodness, the cruise ships. There were so many more people. Town was crowded. The mountain trails. Now, we do typically try to stay off the real touristy ones, so it didn't really affect us as much when we were on the mountain trails. But if we wanted to go in to town, good grief, it was crowded in there. So this year, we booked our house like right at the beginning of January because we didn't want to, we wanted to get our week that we liked. But anyway, so we love Acadia, and truly that's what inspired me to buy this yarn. So weird, I know. But anyway, so I bought this, and it's only one skein, and I wanted to make a little pair of fingerless mitts. I have small hands, so I knew that 145 yards would be plenty just to make a pair, simple. And I have a couple patterns. Both of them are by Alicia Plumes. Alicia Plumes. So that's the plan for this. Okay, another Acadia inspired yarn is this. This is from Antonella, Cozy Posy Yarn Company. And I had asked her, while we were in Maine, they have lots of birch forests there, and the birch trees are my favorite. And so I'm always just in awe when we walk through a patch of birch forest. I'm pulling out my camera, I'm taking pictures, I could just sit there and sit among the birch trees. So I took a picture of a birch tree that was beautiful. It had shades of white, brown, gold, gray, and there was pink on it. It was just a beautiful, beautiful birch, like the trunk of it. So Antonella made dyed up this yarn for me, and I am going to make a sweater. So I have a couple patterns in mind. But if you have a really nice pullover pattern that would be good with fingering weight yarn, and this, I have 3 skeins of it, and there's 438 yards in a skein. So 1,200 and some, almost 1,300 yards. Over 1,300 yards. But anyway, if you know of any great pullover patterns, let me know. I want to find the perfect pattern for this beautiful birch inspired yarn. Okay, and then the last yarn I want to talk about is, it's a little crazy, it's coming loose. Okay, it's this really wonderful rustic yarn from Kettle Yarn Company. I heard about this through Melody, B Mandarins on Instagram. I think she had taken a picture of this particular yarn, and I actually think it was this colorway. because I love this colorway. So I saw it and I thought, oh my gosh, that is totally my shade of pink. I need to get some of that. So then I got on there and then I found this and I thought this would make a great shawl. This is the Ramble base. So it's British Shetland and a Romney woolen spun, and it's fingering weight. It has, this is Meadowsweet. So this is gray, but it's maybe got some brown in it. And this is Hawthorn. These are rustic wools. They do not bother me. Like this is how I test the softness. It does not bother me. However, it would probably bother somebody that needs a really soft wool yarn, because it's definitely rustic. And it also has vegetable matter in it, because I'm looking here at my table that I have in front of me, and just from these sitting here, there has been a little bit, like some flecks of hay that have fallen out, which does not bother me at all. It makes me feel closer to the sheep that these came from. And I get that with my alpaca yarn. As I spin my alpaca, I mean, even though I wash it and stuff, I'm still, I'll have a lap with little pieces of vegetable matter sprinkled on it. So yes, these are going to be a two-tone shawl of some sort. A big one, because I have like almost 900 yards of yarn here. Okay, and speaking of knowing your sheep and vegetable matter and all that kind of stuff, I want to talk about this book real quick. Slow Knitting by Hannah Thiessen. I had seen various Instagrammers posting about this, and although I'm typically not one to just, jump on bandwagons and run with stuff, I was really intrigued by this. So I looked it up on Amazon, and I downloaded the sample for my iPhone so I could just kind of get an idea of what it was all about, and then I ended up purchasing it. And I love it. It's a beautiful book. It's hardcover. It's beautiful looking. So I started reading it the other day, and beautiful writing. And it talks about this Hannah, it talks about kind of her journey from being a knitter that wanted to produce to a knitter that wanted to enjoy the process. I would have to say I am happy when I'm productive. When I have a productive day, I feel really good about myself. When I have an unproductive day, I am hard on myself. And I'm not just talking about in knitting, I'm talking about in life in general. And I've always been that way. So for me, knitting, although I enjoy the process and I find it extremely relaxing, it really does help with my mental health. I also like the end product. I like to produce. This book, I can tell, is going to encourage me to slow down and enjoy the actual process. And I even noticed this morning, I'm doing these sleeves on my test knit sweater, and, I just want to forge through them so I can get it done. I do have a deadline coming, but, it's like, slow down, enjoy these stitches, enjoy the wool, enjoy the feel of it between your fingers. I want to knit more like that. I want it to be less about producing, and although producing is important to me, but I also want it to be about the process too. And typically when I knit, I listen to an audiobook or I'll listen to a podcast. So I've got my brain's working a lot of different ways. It's taking in information while I'm knitting, and but she kind of encouraged me. She even said about just taking the time just to knit without any kind of other distractions or input. So basically how this book works is it is a collection of essays from various yarn designers, knitters, so on and so forth, and then they feature a yarn company. Just an example, Green Mountain Spinnery, Quince & Co., Brooklyn Tweed, and then they also feature patterns. Sorry, somebody just pulled in my driveway. Okay, anyway. The patterns are beautiful, and from what I've seen, they are written in both instructions as well as charts. So if you can use whatever you prefer. But also, just the photos are really pretty. They're just lovely. Lovely photos. Matte paper, thick matte paper. That's my kind of book. Come on. And I decided, I just said about how I don't have green in my wardrobe. That sweater. I feel like I need that sweater. I don't know if that shade of green would look good on me because I'm not a green person. So I'm not really familiar. Like, I know certain pinks, some look better on me than others, and certain corals, some look good. Like the cooler corals look good, the warmer corals, ugh, no, stay away from. So I would just have to find the right shade of green, and I think this cable sweater is just gorgeous. So I think I need to add that to my list of things I want to make. So I highly recommend this book. Get yourself a copy. It's a great read. It's not just good for the patterns. It's like so interesting to hear what the designers and the knitters have to say about their knitting experience. All right, so I'm going to clear up this mess, and I'm going to talk about spinning a little bit, and then that's going to wrap up the podcast. Okay, so here's some of my hand spun here. I don't know if you can really see it. I have the camera a little bit further away from me than what I normally do. I just grabbed some of my skeins of hand spun just to bring them up to show you. I need to use my hand spun. With hand spun, it's such a time-consuming process. This is really a process where you really slow down and think about what you're doing, because I've said this in the past, you spin your singles and then you ply them. I usually just do a 2-ply. My goal one day is to learn how to do various different plies and stuff, but right now I just do what I know how to do, and it still produces a result that I'm happy with, and it's just what fits my time schedule right now. So I do a 2-ply, and most of what I have here is merino, although there are some other wools as well. I think this is Falkland. This is a good one. This is kind of out of my zone typically. As far as the colors, it's very springy looking. And I was thinking when I was looking at this that these need to become a pair of probably fingerless mittens. I'm not a big mitten person. I like fingerless mitts, but I'm not a big mitten person because I feel like I need to use my fingers whenever I'm outside. I'm not going to make anything with this yet. I'm going to sit on it and just kind of wait and see. That's what I do with my hand spun. Okay, and then this is a merino for sure. I know that. It's a nice icy blue. I would call this a thick and thin because there's definitely some areas that are thicker than others. And then I have this other shade of blue. What is this? This is merino. Okay. So this is more, it's got some warm tones in it. It's a darker blue, but it also has some brown in it. So it's got some depth. As I look at these, I haven't actually looked at them recently. And I'm just remembering spinning these. The sun just came out really bright. I might have to pull the shade. I don't know how that's going to affect. Let me pull the shade. We'll go with that. We got a soft pink. I spun this yarn when my daughter was really into pink. She's not anymore. And like a magenta color. This is about 200 yards here in this skein. This is pretty cool. I love this color. It's very bright. Gosh, this lighting. It's a very deep teal color. This is only 32 yards though. I used this and a lighter teal to, I spun it and made a hat out of it. I wear that hat all the time. I should have brought it. It's really cool because this is definitely a thick and thin yarn, and it just looks really cool knit up. Okay, and then I have 2 more skeins here I want to show you. So here's a marled one I did. So this is, I spun white merino, and then I spun a black merino, and then I applied them together. I had 2 skeins of this. I sent one as part of an exchange last year. The only thing I can think of for this, with the amount that's here, which is about 150 yards, is to make a hat. Okay, and then we have this skein. I'm proud of this skein. This was a labor of love, let me tell you. This was shorn off my alpaca, Inferno, who is a Wakaya. And I'm going to talk about the 2 different types of alpaca here in a minute. But, and then I took it and I washed it by hand, and I carded it by hand. And I'm not talking with a drum carder, I'm talking about with combs, well, brushes. They're called hand carders. And then I spun this. So this little skein of yarn here, I could never sell because it took hours and hours and hours of work. I don't think anybody would pay the price I'd have to charge for it. Besides that, this is a reminder of Inferno because we no longer have our alpacas. We had them for 4 or 5 years. We rehomed them last March. I had to have a major surgery done. So, and that wasn't the only reason we rehomed them. There were some other reasons, but that was kind of the precipitating factor. So we rehomed them to a friend of mine who lives about 25 minutes away, and she already had alpacas and goats and just completely loves animals, so that made it much easier. But I still miss them. And the really sad thing is, back in February, beginning of February, we had a really tough, really, really, really cold sub-zero run of weather, and my very favorite alpaca passed away. And they're not sure what happened. She said that she just came home from work and found them laying in the field. I think he was probably 9 or 10. And alpacas typically live a lot longer than that, so I don't know, something must have been going on with him. But he was a brown Surrey, and so it wasn't this alpaca. This was Inferno, Wakaya. But I have years worth of fiber from Majestico, who is the alpaca that passed away. So this summer, when the weather warms up, I'm going to be washing it and drying it and carding it and spinning up some of that fiber, because that'll be a way for me to remember him by, because he was my favorite. And the reason he was my favorite is because when we got him, we bought him from another farm, and he had been the herd leader. He'd been the alpha male in that herd, and it was a big farm, but they had to sell off for financial reasons. So we got two of their Surreys, the last 2 animals they had. And for the first 3 weeks, Majestico paced at our fence, just paced back and forth, looking at the road, watching. I swear he was watching for Peggy to come back and get him, just pacing back and forth. He wore a pathway in the grass. It's still there today. So I think of him every time I go out to the pasture because I see it. I was determined to make him like me. Like, he didn't really want anything to do with me, and it was a challenge, but I'm up for that kind of a challenge. It's just how I am. So I would go out there and I would sit down near him, and I would sing to him and talk to him, and we finally became buddies. So he was probably the hardest one to see go back in March whenever we rehomed them, and so it was really sad when I found out that he had passed away. But he had a good life. And like I said, I have lots of fiber to remember him by. So just a little background information on alpacas. There are 2 different types of alpacas. There's Wakaya and there are Surrey. I was lucky to have both. I had 2 of each. So Inferno was a Wakaya, and we also had another Wakaya. His name was Bud. And then we had 2 Surreys. Majestica was the brown Surrey, and Gander was a white Surrey. Now, I had 3 white animals, and then Majestica was my only colored animal. He was the brown one. Such beautiful fiber. So anyway, the difference between the two, I'm going to show you here. Surrey is much more, I guess I would say hair-like. Like you can see, this has been cleaned. I just haven't carded it. So it's more like you get these locks, okay? It's real fine and straight. Wakaya is probably more what you would think of as like a woolly type of fiber. But this is also washed. All these fibers are washed. So see, you can definitely tell the difference. You can definitely tell the difference. So ideally, what I would do is mix a bit of each. And then this is another example of the Wakaya. You can see it's definitely looks more, gosh, it's so hard with the lighting. Okay, and I'm doing this and little specks of hay are falling out. This fiber actually is not from one of my animals. I forget who I got that off of. Maybe a friend? Maybe I did an exchange? I don't remember. So another thing about alpaca is you typically don't want to use it by itself because it does not have memory, it does not have elasticity, and you can feel that when you spin. So you take this skein of Wakaya and you compare it to the weight of this skein of merino, and this feels so much more dense, so much heavier, even though I spun them the same way. So it must have like a higher density as well. And this is 100% 100% alpaca. I would have no problem making a shawl. I definitely would not make a garment. Even a hat. I think I shared this story last time. I made, for my very first alpaca project, I made a hat for my husband, and it fit him the first time he wore it, and then it stretched out horribly. So I ended up felting it several times, and now it fits well, and it's actually really super warm. So it worked out okay. But it will stretch out, and because it does not have memory, it won't slink back in to where it was. So yeah, this is just an example of some beautiful alpaca fiber. So if I wanted to use alpaca fiber and make something more than just like a shawl or a scarf, I would blend it with some wool, because that would give it enough. Probably what I would feel comfortable doing is 50-50, or more wool than alpaca, depending on what the project was. And I do have lots of unspun wool downstairs as well. And then this basket back here, this is full of gander fiber. I will never possibly spin, I have tubs of alpaca fiber in my basement. And the reason for that is because I have to do it all by hand. It's such a long process, guys. There are mills that I could ship it off to, but it's expensive. Although I will say that I have thought it would probably be worth it, just because then I could do something with it. Even if I had them, not spin it, but to prepare it and get it and make it into like a roving, so that I could spin it and so that I didn't have to go through the whole process of washing and carding. I don't mind doing that. It's just super time consuming, and so I feel like I'm never going to get around to really using that fiber. But it's the season of my life, and it's good. It's a good season. I love being able to homeschool my kids and enjoy my time with them. And I know one day I will have more time, and maybe then I will attack all those tubs of alpaca fiber in the basement. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you ever have any questions, just send them to me. I'd love to interact with you. I think that would be awesome. And it would also kind of give me direction as far as like for future podcasts. So yeah, if you have any questions about things, you can even, it doesn't even have to be knitting related. It could just be like homesteading or anything like that. Because for me, it all kind of ties together. We strive to live a handmade life, whether it's, handmade yarn, handmade items that we wear, our homegrown food. We're just doing our best. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Although by the time I get this edited and put up, it's probably not going to be the weekend anymore. So just thanks. Thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this, if you want to give me a thumbs up, I would greatly appreciate it. Take care.